What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'm doing my official 2023 NASCAR Cup Series driver lineup predictions. We're going to go through all full-time and part-time drivers as well. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start off with the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This should be no surprise to anybody. Ross Chastain is going to be back in the number one car for Trackhouse Racing in 2023. Especially with how good Ross Chastain has really performed this year, with already 2 wins this year, and more podium finishes than anybody else this year with 6 podium finishes, which is double to the next guy, which is William Byron, has 3 top 3 finishes. Ross Chastain is having an incredible 2022 season. And Trackhouse Racing would be foolish to get rid of Ross Chastain. So I believe that Ross Chastain will be back in the one car for Trackhouse Racing in 2023. Up next, talking about the 2 car for Team Penske. This should be no surprise to anybody. Austin Cindric is going to be back in the 2 car for Team Penske for many, many reasons. Number one, he is the son of Tim Cindric, who is the president of Team Penske. Another reason, he just won the Daytona 500 for this year in his rookie season, and also is going to make the playoffs for the first season. Plus, of course, the 2020 NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. Austin Cindric has been really, really successful for this team. I know that his 2020 season, rookie year full-time, has not been impressive, but winning the Daytona 500 is going to be enough to keep you at the team. We'll see Austin Cindric back in the 2 car in 2023. Up next, talking about the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing. This also will not be a surprise to anybody. Austin Dillon is going to be in the 3 car in 2023. Also, of course, being the son, actually the grandson of Richard Childress. Austin Dillon has also been really, really successful so far this year. Has been extremely consistent to right now actually believe be in the playoffs right now, if I'm not mistaken. He's been really consistent throughout this year, and over the last couple years especially, Austin Dillon has become more consistent. And you're going to want that consistent driver to continue doing really, really well, especially since RCR has looked better this year and they've looked like in a very, very long time. So we're going to see Austin Dillon back in the 3 car in 2023. Up next, talking about the 4 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. This won't be a surprise to anybody. Kevin Harvick is going to be back in the 4 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. But I believe that this is going to be Kevin Harvick's final year in the NASCAR Cup Series. Kevin Harvick not only has a contract that goes through 2023, and by the end of 2023, Kevin Harvick is going to be 48 years old, which he'll be the oldest full-time NASCAR Cup Series driver in the series. And Kevin Harvick has said he wants to maybe go up to broadcasting in the near future, but you also look at Kevin Harvick as well. His performance this year in 2022 has not been absolutely superb. So I think that Kevin Harvick will retire after 2023. He'll be looking to get his first win here in 2022, but I think that 2023 is going to be the last year for Kevin Harvick. Up next, talking about the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports. No surprises here, Kyle Larson is going to be back in the 5 car in 2023, as currently at the moment he has a contract through 2023. However, I believe that Kyle Larson is going to get an extension here some point in 2022 or in the early portion of 2023. Especially if all success Kyle Larson has had at Hendrick Motorsports. He has 12 wins at Hendrick Motorsports so far in his career at that organization and has been very, very consistent with the team. I know that 2022 hasn't been as good as 2023, 2021, but I think that Larson will be back with the team long term. Will be probably here the rest of his career and be back in the 5 car in 2023. Up next, talking about the 6 car for RFK Racing. No surprises here, Brad Keselowski is back in the 6 car in 2023 for RFK Racing. Brad Keselowski is a part owner of the organization. As time goes on, though, he's going to have a much more of a majority stake. He's starting off on a small price, and then eventually that is going to go up for him. Plus, when you look at Brad Keselowski himself, I know that this year really hasn't been a great year for his first year as an owner, but he has been decently consistent. And I feel like that RFK is a team that is going to start having a lot of performances down the line. So we'll see Brad Keselowski back in the 6 car next year. I think that he will absolutely improve this team. They were showing signs of improvement at the beginning of this year. I believe that Brad Keselowski will be back and for sure. We continue to drive, and the question is, how long does he race? That's one thing that will be determined long term. Up next, talking about the 7 car for Spire Motorsports. Right now, it's unclear who's going to be in the 7 car, but I believe that Corey LaJoie will be back in the 7 car in 2023. Corey LaJoie this year has been surprisingly quiet this year, but he has had some top 15s and top 20s this year. I feel like the farther we've gone this season, the better I think Spire Motorsports has become. And it's definitely been a learning process for Spire Motorsports, but I think Spire Motorsports should continue to work with Corey LaJoie. He's a really, really good and very, very talented driver, and I think it would be bad for them to get rid of him. So I think that Corey LaJoie will continue driving for Spire Motorsports in the 7 car in 2023. Up next, talking about the 8 car for RCR. No surprises here. Todd Reddick is going to be back with Richard Childress Racing in 2023. A lot of people thought maybe that he'd be leaving RCR, especially with how successful he's been as it is in 2022. But you look at Tyler Reddick with Tyler Reddick. He's really helped Richard Childress Racing become a much better organization, and he's still looking for that first win in 2022. But he's going to have that option picked up with Richard Childress Racing, which I think is a great decision for them. And I think he will do very, very well with this team going forward as they continue to progress as an organization. Up next, talking about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This also is not a surprise. Chase Elliott is going to be back in the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports in 2023, as he has a contract that goes to the 2027 season. Chase Elliott's also having a really, really good year. Yes, he only has one win and 3 top 5 finishes, but Chase Elliott has over a 40-point lead on the regular season due to his consistency. As a matter of fact, Chase Elliott right now, his consistency at the moment, he's the only driver that has an average finish under a 10th place. In fact, he's the only driver right now that has an average finish under a 12th place. So they're going to keep Chase Elliott forever. He's a long franchise driver for Hendrick Motorsports, and we'll continue seeing Chase Elliott with Hendrick Motorsports long term. Up next, talking about the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. There has been no confirmation around the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing at the moment, but I think it's really obvious this one who's probably going to be in the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. There's a lot of big free agents that are still available for that 10 car, but I go to the guy that's reserve driver for Stewart-Haas Racing, Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is a reserve driver for Stewart-Haas Racing, and they would not have put Ryan Preece as a reserve driver unless, of course, Ryan Preece was potentially going to take over one of the Stewart-Haas Racing cars. And Ryan Preece is a very, very talented driver as well. He's done well with DJR Racing throughout the last year or so. He's done really well in select races in the Cup as well. So I think that Ryan Preece is going to be going to the 10 car in 2023. It'll be a great driver in that car. Up next, talking about the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This should not be a shock here. Denny Hamlin is going to be back in the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023. I know that Denny Hamlin's season in 2022 has been horrendous, but I think that Denny Hamlin eventually in 2022 is going to bounce back and start performing a lot better. And I also do expect around Denny Hamlin that I think is, like I said, his consistency is going to be a lot better as well. So I think that Denny Hamlin will continue to drive for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023 in the number 11 car. He's a really good driver still to this day. He's still looking for that first championship, and we'll see him back in the 11 car in 2023. Up next, talking about the 12 car for Team Penske. This should not come as a shock by anybody. Ryan Blaney will be back in the 12 car in 2023, as his contract, I believe, goes through the 2023 season. Ryan Blaney is still looking for his first win in 2022, but Ryan Blaney currently sits in second or third in the points right now, and has been also very, very consistent, just not as consistent as Chase Elliott has been this season. But like I said, when you look at this team overall as a whole, Ryan Blaney is a very, very good driver who is still looking for that first win. I think that win is potentially coming for Ryan Blaney, and I think he will for sure be back in the 12 car in 2023. Up next, talk about the 14 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. This should be no surprise to anybody. Chase Briscoe is going to be in the 14 car once again in 2023. Chase Briscoe is a Ford factory driver, and Ford really doesn't have any other place they could put Chase Briscoe, so they're going to keep Chase Briscoe in the 14 car. Plus, Chase Briscoe this year, especially in the Cup Series, has been really, really good. He's been arguably the best driver at Stewart-Haas Racing. He's lacked some of the consistency factor that some of the other drivers have, but he's the only driver right now at Stewart-Haas Racing that has a victory at the moment, picking up his first career victory at Phoenix. So we see Chase Briscoe back in the 14. He's a really good driver, and he'll do very, very well in this car going forward. Up next, talking about the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing. Now, similar to this year in 2022, 2023, Rick Ware Racing is only going to have 2 cars in 2023. This 15 car is going to be kind of like an all-star car where multiple drivers are going to get in the car. The first driver to be in this car is David Reagan, who's made multiple starts for Rick Ware Racing. I think he's going to be driving this car for multiple races. Then I think J.J. Lee and Garrett Smithley are also going to get in this 15 car as well. These guys have all driven the 15 this year, and I think we'll see that be a similar thing that they do in 2023. Maybe some other drivers get involved, like a Joey Hand perhaps, and Joey Hand also will get a start at this, but we'll see those guys in the 15 car in 2023. Up next, talk about the 16 car for Colleague Racing. Now, in 2022, Colleague Racing has 2 cars, and the 16 car is an all-star car. However, in 2023, this car is actually going to be a full-time car because College Racing, I believe, is going to open up a third part-time entry. And I think the 16 car will be a full-time car. And I think the driver of the 11 for College Racing, the Xfinity Series, Daniel Hamrick, is going to take over the 16 car. Daniel Hamrick has sponsorships from Poppy Bank and other companies like South Point that are going to be willing to sponsor him. And also Circle as well, that is working with Daniel Hamrick for many, many races this season. So I think Daniel Hamrick is going to jump up full-time to the Cup Series in 2023. And I believe that he will have Circle, some other sponsors work with them. It'll be in the 16 car in 2023. Up next, talk about the 17 car for RFK Racing. This should not shock anybody. Chris Buescher is getting back in the 17 car in 2023. We really don't know the extent of his contract with Chris Buescher at the moment, but Chris Buescher is rumored to be with the team through 2024, and Fastall, of course, has a long-term partnership right now through 2024 as well, which has, of course, sponsored Chris Buescher over the years, and also Castrol stepped up to the plate, and other companies like Violent Defense have come in and worked with the team as well. Chris Buescher is a really, really good driver, and it would be foolish for RFK to get rid of Chris Buescher. He's around 20 from the points and are running very consistent as much as he did last year. Not running worse, running very similar to he did last year, and we'll see him back in a 17 car in 2023. Up next, talk about the 18 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, there are a lot of questions around the driver currently driving the 18 car, Kyle Busch. And the big reason right now is because Kyle Busch does not have a sponsor that is willing to work with him. However, I believe that Kyle Busch is actually going to be able to find a big sponsor that is going to be willing to sponsor him. And I think it's going to be Menards for multiple reasons. Number one, Menards has been featured in multiple, Kyle Busch has been featured in multiple Menards commercials. Another big reason is they sponsored multiple teams in the NASCAR Cup Series, Wood Brothers, Team Penske, and also Joe Gibbs Racing as well. And they sponsor a lot of different drivers. So we're going to see Kyle Busch in an 18 car next year. I think Kyle Busch will back in 18 next year. It's unclear how long the extension is going to be for Kyle Busch, but I think that Kyle Busch will be in the 18 car once again in 2023. I think he's going to get re-signed. He's a good enough driver that can get it done, and we'll see him back in the 18 car in 2023. Up next, talking about the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. There's also a lot of questions around this driver in the 19 car currently, who is Martin Truex Jr. And initially coming in this season, I thought that Martin Truex Jr. was going to leave Joe Gibbs Racing, and driver who drives the 54 for them in Xfinity Series, Ty Gibbs, was going to take over. And I know that his body language very recently has kind of indicated that he's not having as much fun. But Martin Truex Jr. has a very calm demeanor about himself. And I think that Martin Truex Jr. is actually going to come back to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023. Another reason is because Ty Gibbs is expected to be back with them in the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity in 2023. However, I think that this is actually going to be Martin Truex Jr.'s final season in the Cup Series. Martin Truex Jr. is getting up there in age. He'll be 43 at the end of the 2023 season. So I think he returns to Joe Gibbs Racing, but this will be his last year with the organization. Up next, talk about the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This should not surprise anybody. Christopher is getting back in the 20 car in 2023. Now, Christopher's contract is unknown. I believe that 2022 is a contract year for Christopher Bell. But Christopher Bell, especially in the last 5 or 6 weeks, has really stepped up his performance and stepped up his game. Yes, he has not won a race at this point this year, but he is currently in the top 10 in points right now. If you're going to want to contend for a championship, you're going to end regular season championship and get those points, you're going to have to run that consistent. So we can see Christopher Bell back in the 20 car. He's good enough to get it done. I think he'll be back in the 20, and I think he'll do good next year in 2023. Up next, talk about the 21 car for Wood Brothers Racing. Now, there's also some major questions as well around the Wood Brothers organization because Harrison Byrne, who is the current driver for the team, has absolutely struggled this year in 2022. But I think because he has such major ties with Dex Imaging, who sponsored him, I think that Harrison Byrne is going to be back in the 21 car for the Wood Brothers in 2023. Harrison Byrne's rookie year has been horrendous. There's no doubt about that. It kind of was expected he was not going to run great, but he's been absolutely showing a piss poor showing. That being said, though, I think that Harrison Byrne will be back with the team. He's a good enough driver, knows how to get it done, and I think he'll do great much better in 2023 than he has in 2022. Up next, talking about the 22 car for Team Penske. This should come as a shock about nobody. Joey Logano is going to be back in the 22 car in 2023. Now, Joey Logano, very similar to Ryan Blaney, is on a contract year as well with Team Penske. However, due to how much success he's had with this team and already picking up his first win of the 2022 season, Joey Logano is going to return to Team Penske. Plus, he is a champion of this series, and of course, he also has Daytona 500, among many other accolades. So we see Joey Logano back in the 22 car for next year, and we'll also see Joey Logano probably finish his career with Team Penske. Up next, how about the 23 car for 23XI Racing? This should come out, and that's not a shock to anybody. Bubba Wallace is going to be back in the 23 car for 23XI Racing. This team would not exist without Bubba Wallace being in that 23 car, being technically the flagship driver. Now, Bubba Wallace has not had a great year in 2022, but I also think there's a lot of outside contributing factors that have really made a major role into Bubba Wallace's struggles in 2022. And also 23XI really has struggled this season. But I believe that he will improve in 2022 and also in 2023. And I think he'll do good enough to continue drive for 23XI Racing in 2023. Up next, how about the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports? No surprise here anymore. William Byron is getting back in the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports as he has a contract now that goes for the 2025 season. And you look at William Byron in 2022 as well. William Byron has been absolutely amazing this season. He's been extremely consistent this year, a little bit inconsistent, but he's one of only 2 drivers right now that has multiple victories this season, the other driver, of course, being Ross Chastain. When I think of drivers that are absolutely capable of getting things done, I think that William Byron is a driver that's capable of getting things done. He's been absolutely improving every single season, and we're for sure going to see William Byron 1,000% back in the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. Up next, talking about the 27 car for Team Hasenbergs. Now, Team Hasenbergs in 2022 has only made a few select starts, but they have said very recently that they've been looking to potentially next year go full-time. And I think it's going to be a very similar driver lineup that they had in 2022. We're going to have Larice Hazen drive a majority of the season, unlike this year, but they're going to have Jacques Villeneuve drive a couple races as well, including potentially running once again the Daytona 500. Now, look, like I said, Team Hasenbergs has not entered in any races really since the beginning of the year. Really, the last time they entered a race was Circuit of the Americas. I think their next race probably will be at Sonoma. It's unsure on that. But I hope they do continue runs. It'd be great to have another team show up, and we'll see them back in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2023. Up next, how about the 29 car for Richard Childress Racing? Yes, you heard that right. Another Rich Childress race car, I believe, is going to open up on a part-time basis in 2023. I think, especially with the resources being dropped a little bit, I think that they have enough resources now where they can bring back the 29 car that was one of the most successful cars in the history of Richard Childress Racing. And I think that this car is going to be a part-time car for the 2 drivers that are currently driving the Xfinity Series, Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed. Both drivers have had decent years. Austin Hill's been much better than Sheldon Creed, but I think those guys are going to get Cup experience. Austin Hill is like 28 or 29 years old once this season happens, and Sheldon Creed is around 25 or 26 at the moment. I think of both of them jumping up to Xfinity, it's no brainer here. We'll see both those guys probably in the Cup Series on a part-time basis in 2023. Up next, we're talking about the 31 car for Colleague Racing. No surprise here, Justin Haley is going to be back in the 31 car for Colleague Racing in 2023. Justin Haley's had a quiet year this year. He had a really bad start to the year, but really recently especially, Justin Haley's been really turning it up a notch and performing a lot better. In fact, Justin Haley is now 20th in the points, which I did not expect Justin Haley to be around 20th in the points this year because of how good the competition has been. But he's ahead of not only both 23XI cars, he's also ahead of Denny Hamlin in the points right now, and he's coming off a very strong finish at Darlington. So we're going to see Justin Haley back in the 31 car. He's been the flagship Colleague driver really since the beginning, and we'll see him back in that 31 car. Up next, talk about the 32 car for 23XI Racing. Very similar to other organizations, they are also going to expand in 2023 as well. And they're going to bring a driver that's from the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series up to the NASCAR Cup Series, John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek not only is a very talented driver, it seems like anytime he gets behind any sort of car behind a wheel, he tends to perform really good. But he also has Cup Series experience and has FAS services to be able to sponsor him as well. So I think just because of how good he is of a driver, we'll see him back in the Cup Series with a much more competitive organization. I know it's probably not the greatest thing to expand an operation, but we're going to see him back in the Cup Series in 2023 with 23XI. He's been good enough to earn the ride, in my opinion. Up next, how about the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports? Now, Farmer Motorsports is also going to expand to a 3-car operation. However, the 3rd car is only going to be a part-time car. The 34 car is going to be driven once again in 2023 by Michael Mcdowell. Michael Mcdowell is quietly putting together another really consistent season. 3 of the last 4 races he's finished in the top 10. It has a 10.25 average finish. On top of that, Michael Mcdowell is having a great late career resurgence. Of course, winning the Daytona 500 last year. I think with how good he is, he's going to return. However, I believe that this is actually going to be Michael McDowell's final full-time season in the NASCAR Cup Series. I don't think he's done racing altogether after 2023, but I think that next year is going to be the final season. Plus, he's been in the Cup Series now for technically around 15 years in the racing world, really since 2007. So he's been in the racing series and top 3 series for a very long time. So I think this will be his next year will be his last full-time year in the Cup Series. Up next, talking about the 36 car for Front Row Motorsports. This is going to be the part-time car, and it's going to be driven by the driver who drives for the Truck Series organization, the driver of the 38 in the Truck Series, Zane Smith. Yes, I think Zane Smith is going to drive part-time in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2023. Zane Smith is going to be 23 or 24 years of age by that point, and he also does have quite a bit of NASCAR Xfinity Series experience as well, and has driven in many NASCAR Xfinity Series races for Junior Motorsports in the past. And you look at Zane Smith as well, front row this year, he's been putting together a really strong season, being one of the only few drivers that has multiple wins in the Truck Series this season. So I think of how good he's been performing, we'll see Zane Smith continue to drive for front row. We know he's going to be in the 38 truck next year, but we will probably also see him drive part-time in the Cup Series. Up next, how about the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports? This should not surprise anybody. Todd Gillan is going to be back in the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. Todd Gillan is also a driver. He's going to be also the first driver that's had multiple seasons in the 38 car since David Reagan drove this car back in 2017, 2018, of those couple seasons. Todd Gillan's definitely a very talented driver, and he's been putting together a quiet year so far, but is around 25th in the points, which for both front row cars being top 25 in points is really impressive. He's an underdog to win the Rookie of the Year right now. He still is looking for that first career Cup Series victory, but I think he's very capable at a young age of 21 years old, is capable enough to contend for that. Up next, how about the 41 car for Soares Racing? This should not come as a shock for anybody. Cole Custer is going to be back in the 41 car for Soares Racing. Now, this is going to be Cole Custer's 4th full-time season in the Cup Series. At some point, if you're in Cole Custer's position, because he is going to be 24 or going to be 25 or 26 years old by this point, he's really going to have to step it up to the plate. Cole Custer has absolutely struggled in the Cup Series this year and has struggled. He's the only one at Soares Racing that hasn't really done anything. He only has 1 win so far to show for it in his career. So he's at some point going to really have to step it up to the plate and perform a lot better. But we're not seeing him leave. Unfortunately, we're not seeing him leave Soares Racing for someone else to get in. So we'll see him back in the 41 car in 2023. Up next, how about the 42 car for Petty GMS Motorsports? There's not going to be any changes here. I know some people probably want to change with this car, but there's not going to be any changes here. Ty Dillon is getting back in the 42 car for Petty GMS Racing Motorsports in 2023. Ty Dillon has actually quietly had some really good runs this year. He's running around 15th to 20th most weeks, and he's not as good as Erik Jones has been this year for sure, but Ty Dillon has been putting together a decent year, and he's definitely a good counterpart driver to have along with Erik Jones. And I think Ty Dillon, like I said, has absolutely improved. You look at some of the Xfinity Series races he had, including that one race he had with Jordan Anderson Racing. I think that Ty Dillon's capable enough, and we'll see him back in the 42 car for Petty GMS Motorsports in 2023. Up next, how about the 43 car for Petty GMS Motorsports? There's not going to be any changes here. I believe that Erik Jones is getting back in the 43 car for Petty GMS Motorsports. Now, currently at the moment, he is not confirmed back with the team at this time. And just at the moment, because they're still looking at trying to get negotiation talks going. If you're Petty GMS Motorsports, it'd be foolish for you to not bring Erik Jones back to your organization. Erik Jones is a very good driver. He knows what he's doing behind the wheel. And I think it would be bad for them to get rid of him. So, we're going to see Erik Jones back in the 43 car. He's contending for the playoffs. That's the first time the 43 car has generally contended for a playoff spot in a long time. We're going to see him back in the 43 car in 2023. Up next, how about the 44 car for NY Racing? NY Racing has not made some starts in the Cup Series really since, I believe, Richmond. It's been about 4 or 5 weeks, or Talladega, I should say, is the last time they entered a Cup Series race, which was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I think a lot of it's been due to their engine and fuel pump issues that they've been having. But they're going to be back next year in 2023 with a much better organization. But they're going to bring Greg Biffle back on a part-time basis next year. And they're also going to, shockingly, I think, bring Matt DiBenedetto into the 44 car. Matty D's had a quiet year in the Truck Series this year. Has had some great runs in the Truck Series this year. Really, he's had, I think, 4 or 5 top 15 finishes with Rackley WR Racing. And, of course, Greg Biffle as a driver has been helping this team get the ball rolling. So, we'll see both these guys in the Cup Series next year once again, with Greg Biffle most of the year and Matty D making a couple starts in 2023. Up next, how about the 45 car for 2311 Racing? No surprise here, Kurt Busch is going to be back in the 45 car for 2311 in 2023. But like Kevin Harvick and multiple other drivers, this is going to be his last season in the Cup Series, is going to be 2023. Kurt Busch is definitely getting up there in age. By the end of 2023, Kurt Busch is going to be 45 years old. And I think that his age is going to start really, unfortunately, affecting Kurt Busch. And Kurt Busch this year in 2022 has really, really struggled this year. Kurt Busch currently right now at this moment sits 21st in the points and is really needing to have some good runs going forward to really help himself out. But I think he's going to improve as a driver in 2022, and in 2023, he's also going to improve as well in his final full-time season. Up next, how about the 47 car for JT Doherty Racing? Well, there's a few questions around JT Doherty Racing in their future, if they're even going to return or not. They confirmed they're going to be back, so I think that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is going to be back in the 47 car in 2023. Now, of course, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had really struggled at the beginning of 2022, but as season has progressed, in the last 2 weeks especially, he has finished inside the top 10 as well the last 2 consecutive races, and is, I believe, 26th or 27th in the points now, compared to what he was before Dover. He was outside the top 30. Now he's around 26th to 27th in points, which, again, is really, really good to see. So we're going to see Ricky Stenhouse Jr. back in the 47 car. He's a really good and great driver. Well, not a great driver, but he's absolutely improved over the years, and we'll see him back in the 47 car. Up next, how about the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports? No surprise here. Alex Bowman is going to be back in the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports in 2023. Alex Bowman has a contract that right now goes through 2023. The big question is right now, he's one of the 4 drivers. He's one driver out of the 4 drivers at Hendrick right now that is really, after 2023, their future is not secure. If LA wants to continue to work with them, which they have a really good partnership and a really good working relationship, I would think it'd be stupid for them to get rid of Alex Bowman, and also a guy who's gotten the second most wins over the last couple of years. Chase Elliott still is the second most winningest driver currently at Hendrick Motorsports at the moment. But I think we'll see Alex Bowman for sure after 2023 back with the team, and we'll see him back with this team in 2023. Up next, how about the 50 car for the Money Team Racing? Now, the Money Team has only entered a few races this year, only 2 or 3 races. But I think the Money Team is going to make more starts in 2022. And in 2023, they're also going to go ahead and make more starts in 2023. Now, they're not going to be a full-time team in 2023, but they're going to make a ton of starts. You look at how good of a driver Kaz Grala is, who currently drives for the team, and I think that's who's going to drive his 50 car on a part-time basis as well. Now, of course, they're going to drive a majority of the season in this car, but we're going to see Kaz Grala in the 50 car for the Money Team, and they will be back, and they'll be a much better team with a much better lines in 2023. Up next, how about the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing? This should not surprise anybody. Cody Workhorse is going to be back in the 51 car in 2023. Cody Workhorse definitely has had a hit or miss season so far. Really has not been that great, especially even compared to his teammate car that's been out on the track. But Cody Workhorse, being the son of the team owner, he's not really surprised me that he's going to be back with this team. And Cody Workhorse has shown some progress. He got a top 20 this past weekend with Rick Ware Racing at Darlington. Yes, a lot of cars had a wreck out, but he's even actually at points running in the top 25, which is really impressive at Darlington, which shows he does have a little bit of talent behind him. So I do hope Cody Workhorse can perform next year, because he's going to be back in this car in 2023. Up next, how about the 55 car for Nbn Motorsports? And yes, Nbn Motorsports is going to have 2 cars once again in 2023. This 55 cars, though, is going to be running less than the other car, which we'll get into later in this predictions. But the 55 car is going to have 2 drivers in this car. J.G. Lee is going to drive part-time for Rick Ware Racing, and Chad Fitcham as well is going to be in this 55 car. Both drivers had starts at Nbn Motorsports over the years, and J.G. Lee is driving full-time for Nbn Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year, where he's had some good starts this year, but not some really amazing starts this season. So, especially you look at the caliber of J.J. Yeley, we're going to see him back in his 55 car. Same with Chad Fincham. We'll continue to see both those guys back in the 55 car in 2023. Up next, talk about the 61 car for Kaulig Racing. Now, Kaulig Racing, of course, like I mentioned, is going to expand to a 3-car team. This car will be a part-time organization, and we'll have 2 drivers driving in this car, and it's the other 2 drivers that drive in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. AJ Allmendinger is going to drive majority of the races that they run on a part-time basis. AJ, of course, already winner of 2 NASCAR Cup Series races, including getting Kaulig's first ever Cup Series victory last year at the Indianapolis Road Course. He'll be in this car, and also Landon Cassill is going to be in this car as well. Now, Landon Cassill has been driving for Spire Motorsports in the NASCAR Cup Series, but I think that he's going to move on from Spire Motorsports and join Kaulig's 3rd part-time car. That's going to happen for this team in 2023. Up next, we're going to talk about the 62 car for Byrne Motorsports. Now, I expect that Byrne Motorsports is going to be jumping up once again to the Cup Series in 2023. But this time, they're not going to have Noah Grayson, as Noah Grayson is going to go to another organization. The 62 car is going to be driven by a former NASCAR Xfinity Series driver who has a lot of experience in that series and does have a win at super speedways. Talking about Michael Annett. Michael Annett, over the years, has said that he has been looking to maybe do a couple select starts in this series. So I think it's going to be Michael Annett who drives 62 car for Byrne Motorsports. They will run all the super speedways, I believe, in 2023. But I also think that they could potentially make another start on maybe like a road course or somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to see the 62 car for Byrne Motorsports with Michael Annett. Up next, talk about the 66 car for Nbn Motorsports. No surprise here. I expect that Timmy Hill is going to be back in the 66 car for Nbn Motorsports. Timmy Hill is a really, really good driver who probably should have a better opportunity, but he's had such a long-term working relationship with Carl Long for like 6 or 7 years now that it'd be really foolish for them to get rid of Timmy Hill. And he's been a good driver for this team in the past as well, and also great for his Truck Series organization as well. I think maybe in the future we'll see Hill Motorsports up in the Cup Series, but I think Timmy Hill's a really, really good driver, and we'll see him back in a 6.6 car. I don't think Boris Saad is going to come back in 2023, so we'll see Timmy Hill in this 66 car. Up next, we're talking about the 77 car for Spire Motorsports. There is going to be only one driver this year compared to last year, where there were 2 drivers this year. There's only going to be 1 driver in this 77 car, and it's going to be the other driver that's not Landon Cassill. Josh Bilicki is going to go full-time with the team. Josh Bilicki has a lot of funding around him, and he's a good driver as well. I know that Josh Bilicki has not had a lot of amazing starts here in that 77 car, but I also think they don't put a lot of work into it. But I will say I kind of expect some top 25s from the 77 car, and I really haven't seen it with this team besides maybe the super speedways. But I think he's going to be more capable if they just focus on one guy compared to 2 guys. I think focusing on one driver is really, really important, and that's going to be Josh Bilicki. Up next, talk about the 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports. Live Fast Motorsports is going to do something very, very similar to what they did this season, where they're going to, most of the year, they're going to have full-time cups. They're going to have BJ McLeod drive his car on a full-time basis, most of the year. But this will also be BJ McLeod's final season racing in general. For a lot of the rest of the year, it's going to be one of the drivers that drives for his Xfinity Series organization, Josh Williams, who I believe is going to get in this car. Josh made his NASCAR Cup Series debut at Bristol Dirt in 2022, where I believe he finished in the top 30 and top 25 in the event for Live Fast Motorsports. Josh is a very talented driver, just has had a lot of bad luck so far this season. I think Josh is a great driver, and BJ is a great driver, and I think BJ gets more starts in the 78 car, as this is going to be BJ McLeod's final season as a race car driver, as he's getting up there in age. He's around 40 years old now, so I think that this will be his next year will be his last year driving the series. Up next, talking about the 79 car for Team Sange Racing. Yes, Team Sange Racing, who's making 5 or 6 starts in the NASCAR Cup Series with Tarso Marquet behind the wheel. Now, Team Sange Racing recently announced a development program that they are going to run, and they're going to have a driver named Matteo Nannini. And I believe that Team Sange Racing is going to potentially go full-time in the Cup Series, and they're going to not only going to have Tarso Marquet in this car, but they're also going to have Matteo Nannini, shockingly, at only the age of 18 or 19 years old, making a start in some starts in the 79 car. It's going to be a split very similar to the Team Haysburg organization, how they do the split. I think that's how it's going to go down, and it's going to be them partnering up with Ford. They're going to get a major alliance with the team, and they'll have Tarso Marquet and Matteo Nannini behind the wheel of this car. Up next, talk about the 88 car for Junior Motorsports. Yes, you heard that right. I think that Junior Motorsports is finally, after much anticipation, they are finally going to jump up to the NASCAR Cup Series in 2023. And they are going to drop Rick Hendrick from the organization. They're still going to get a major Hendrick alliance with the team, so there's going to be no bad blood between them. But we're going to see them go full-time in 2023 with a charter. I think they're going to somehow pick up a charter. And I think the driver of this car is going to be the driver that's been most successful for Junior Motorsports this season, Noah Grayson. Noah Grayson has been really, really good this year, and even Dale Jr. has said that Noah Grayson is absolutely Cup ready as well. And Noah Grayson has been in the Xfinity Series now for 4 seasons, so I think it's going to be at some point, it's going to be time for them to make the call to jump him up. And I think that the call is going to happen in 2023 with Noah Grayson getting behind the wheel of that 88 car. Up next, talk about the 96 car for Gaunt Brothers Racing. Gaunt Brothers Racing this year was expecting to run some starts this year, but they have not shown up behind the wheel, I think, due to the shortage and the lack of chassis they have. Because the teams have a lack of chassis this year due to basically being a spec car. They have not made a start this year. However, Gaunt Brothers Racing, I think, is going to actually return in 2023. And I think that they are going to bring the driver that's been in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing, Brandon Jones, up actually on a full-time basis. Yes, heard that right. Brandon Jones, full-time in the Cup Series with Gaunt Brothers Racing. Gaunt Brothers, I think, is going to go full-time for the first time since 2020. Last time, of course, they tried to go full-time with Daniel Soares. We know how that really went. It wasn't absolutely impressive. But he actually also had some good runs with Gaunt. Gaunt Brothers, I think, is ready to make the jump again, and they're going to have Brandon Jones. I think maybe once on Park Clearman every once in a while in that car, but I think Brandon Jones will drive most of the year in the 96 for this team. And finally, in the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing, this should not surprise anybody. Daniel Soares is back in the 99 car with this organization. Daniel Soares is a really, really pretty overall good driver. He's a very solid driver who's going to give you enough performance out there, but is still also looking for that first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at this time. He still potentially get that done here in 2022. He looks like he's been capable of contending for victories, especially on road courses this year, but like I mentioned, he's still looking for that first win. But I think that Daniel Soares will potentially get that done. And how good Daniel Soares is, I think that we'll see him for sure back in the 99 for Trackhouse Racing in 2023. So, that is going to be the official 2023 driver lineup predictions video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Answer me on pages on the list schedule below over that, and comment your predictions below for the 2023 season. Who do you think is going to end up wearing 2023? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, expect a NASCAR news video. We'll go over some of the paint schemes, some of the other news that drops over the week. It won't be a very long news video. There's not much news really been going around here the last day or so. So keep your tabs on, keep your fingers crossed for some potential big news. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.